If you want to learn to play music faster, read music faster, or even write music at all, you'll really want to make sure that you understand what chords are. To a lot of people, chords can seem really complicated. These weird symbols or arbitrary letters apparently are a code to play certain notes, and just knowing that is enough to put anyone off. But there's a reason why you're here. You want to learn about chords, and believe me, they're not as difficult as you might think. Much like learning scales, similar to what you may have seen in my last video, chords have their own formula, and it's so simple, but it's actually easier than learning the scales. By the end of this video, you'll know how to play majors, minors, augmented chords, and diminished chords. I mean, it's already sounding crazy, but I guarantee you will be able to play any one of those on any position in any scale by the end of this video. So, let's get to it. Right, so first things first, we need a scale, and we're going to take the C major scale because it's the simplest one, but if you want to learn any other scale on the piano, just make sure that you watch my last video. There'll be a link up in the corner somewhere. Anyways, C major is just white notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Now, let's take those note names, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and turn them into numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now that it's got numbers, we can apply a formula to it, which is going to give us either a major, a minor, an augmented, or a diminished chord. It's as simple as that. So we'll start with the major, and you'll hear why it sounds brilliant in just a moment. So the major is 1, 3, and 5. So notes 1, 3, and 5. And I play them all together, bit of pedal. Nice ring to it, sounds quite grand and sounds really positive. That's the major sound. So the really great thing is, now that we know those notes, we can actually play them anywhere. So if I take a C all the way down at the bottom and an E and a G at the top here, technically, still C major. Technically, this note at the top here, believe it or not, is a C, and I can play an E and a G, and we still get that C major sound, albeit not as grand, not as deep and powerful, but it works. So why am I telling you this? Well, it means that you can take that position 1, as it's so often called, and you can add other notes to it. If I play a couple of C's in the bass, it sounds quite full. I can play it with an E, G, and a C in the second position, or third position, G, C, and E. And it just keeps going up the piano, and it's sounding bigger and fuller and better every moment that passes. But you may be wondering, what's the point? Why do I need to learn all the chords in all these different positions? Well, it opens up the sound to you. It means that you could potentially write music with a big, broad sound, or it means that you can read music from a music book that has lots of different notes in a really weird, long, elongated pattern, but now you actually recognize what the pattern is. It's just a chord going up the piano. And now you don't have to read so many notes because you know half of the notes already. You might even know 90% of the notes because you recognize the pattern and you can just play it. So just with the C major chord, I could play something like this. Complete improvisation, purely because I know the chord and the notes. But it doesn't stop there. If we then take that same pattern of 1, 3, and 5, we could translate it to another scale. So let's say F major. If you don't know it already, it's okay, I'm going to tell you it. It's F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, and F. Remember, we take those note names and we turn them to numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we just take the same formula, 1, 3, and 5, and we get that same major sound, but in a different position. Remember, we had C major here, now we have F major here. It's worth noting that depending on the scale will depend on whether you've got blank notes. Just because it's major doesn't mean it's only white notes. For example, F sharp major is only black notes. E flat major is a couple of black notes and a white note. D major is a couple of white notes and a black note. It goes further. There are minor chords, like minor scales, if you saw my last video. They sound like this. Minor scales sound a little bit darker, a little bit more negative or sad. You get the same in chords. So instead of just 1, 3, and 5, we'll go back to C major as an example. We have 1 flat 3 and 5. See how that sounds? See how it's darker, it's more dramatic, and personally, it's my favorite. If I translate that to other places on the piano, I suddenly feel like Dracula in my castle, and I think that works really well. Remember, all of these notes that I'm playing just come from that first chord that I played, C, E flat and G. I'm not even really thinking about the order of them, because I know that any single note in that chord that I play is going to work with the other one. Does that make sense? I can play any of those notes in any order and I'm never going to go wrong. It's never going to sound bad. But remember, we can translate this to other scales. So again, let's take the F major chord that we had and let's make it minor. Let's flatten that third. So from an A to an A flat, it's really quite dark. And why not? Why don't we take the C minor chord and combine it with the F minor chord in a little chord progression like we're writing a song. So let's make it up. Here we go, something like this, C minor. I like to think that that sounded pretty impressive, but between you and me, it was really quite simple because we were just taking those individual notes. I practiced a little bit, of course, so that my hands can move around the notes evenly and accurately, but in terms of writing the music, it's not complicated, but it sounds really good, and it's something that you can do yourself. And I know some of you are going to be saying, well, that sounds really simple, that's a bit basic. I'm actually quite an advanced piano player, you know. What's the point? Well, why don't you speed it up or add extra notes? So let's try the speeding up. No, I'm getting distracted already. Can't help myself. But immediately, you could see those were just the same notes. I was just going C minor, broken it up, F minor, broken it up, C minor, again, broken it up. And it was just the speed that made it sound impressive. And I said you could expand on it as well, so let's do that. For example, I could go C, E flat, G, C, E flat, G, C. Technically on arpeggio, let's go all the way up the piano. Stuck in a cheeky G major chord there if you want to have a go about that yourself. But the point being here is that just with majors and minors you can begin to write something that sounds incredible. But you just need to put in a bit of practice so that you know the theory so you can work out the chords yourself without having to Google it. But there are two more chords to cover, and I'm going to keep it really quick because I think by this point you understand what I'm getting at. You know that a chord can be worked out simply and then translated anywhere on the piano. But there are two more chords we can do this with, at least for now. There are plenty more that we can cover later, and that is the diminished chord and the augmented chord. In fact, I think I mentioned the augmented one first, so we'll start with that. C major is where we're going to begin. 1, 3 and 5. To augment the chord, I believe the definition of augment is to get bigger. We have to expand the chord slightly wider. So instead of C, E and G, we now play C, E and G sharp. 1, 3, sharp 5. You can imagine that in sort of an older horror movie sort of concept. It's not often used in very popular music. Some people are going to have better examples than I'm going to bring up. I don't actually have any examples, but you don't hear that very often, but you might want to use it to add a bit of flavour, a bit of interest to your piece of music. I'll make some videos later on about how you can compose with these various chords, but for now, just be aware it exists and experiment with it. See how the chord can suddenly resolve to somewhere else? Because it sounds quite unique, it sounds like it's leading somewhere. But that's enough about the augmented because I think the majors and the minors are more important. Let's finally get on to the diminished. And the augmented, remember, was major expanded. The diminished is the minor shrunk. It's diminished, you're getting smaller, right? So let's go back to C minor, C, E flat and G, 1, flat, 3 and 5. To make diminished, it's now C, E flat and G flat, So it's 1, flat 3, flat 5. The diminished chord can often be heard in pieces that sort of involve a bit of jazz. So here's an example. So essentially, a major is just the combination of notes 1, 3 and 5 of a scale. The minor being 1, flat 3 and 5, the augmented being 1, 3, sharp 5, and the diminished being 1, flat 3, flat 5. You can play those notes in any order as well and you still get that chord. And in fact, it's recommended that you learn the chord in the position 1 and then expand and see what other positions you can find and see what additional notes you can add over the top to make it sound even better. So what I'd recommend is for your practice for the week, you take each and every scale that you've learned so far, whether that's all 12 major scales or just 2 or 3, and you learn the chords within them and you just see how simple it is to work them out and how great they sound once you've got them sorted. Remember, learning chords can not only help you write your own music, because that's fantastic to be able to do and I love doing it, but it also enables you to read music faster and learn music faster in general. So I truly hope this video helped you out. If it did, give it a like. If you want to see more of this sort of stuff, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to be notified when your next lesson is, of course that's 10 AM on Saturdays, UK time, then make sure you've hit that notification bell and I'll see you next time.